welcome to my workshop. Recently I managed to get a new table saw, the Evolution R255 TBLX. Now in my version I don't have an Outfeed table. In the Plus version you actually do get a Outfeed solution. So today I'm actually going to be making a DIY version of an Outfeed table plus a bit of an Infeed table as well to help me out with those longer or larger pieces of timber I'm cutting on my table saw. The materials I'm going to be using for this is 18mm MDF. Now preferably if you do have plywood would probably be nicer and better. However, I'm on the budget here and MDF it is. First of all, we're going to be cutting out a longer piece for the fence. And in this case, I want it to be 15 centimeters wide. You can find the dimensions of all the pieces for this project down below in the description of this video, so don't worry about that. The length of this fence needs to be at 95 centimeters. And I can now cut it to size with my miter saw. The next thing I'm going to cut is a strip that's 3 centimeters wide and about 47 centimeters long. That's more or less what I've got lengthwise when it comes to this board. And again, I'm going to be using my miter saw to make that cut. And in the same way, I'm going to carry on cutting the Outfeed table that needs to be at 23 centimeters wide, same length at 45 centimeters, and the Infeed table. This time, the Infeed table needs to be at 15 centimeters wide, and actually I'm going to cut it to size to 20 centimeters long. Right, this piece will go on the top of my table saw fence, and in my fence I actually do have a T-track on top. So I'm going to be using some T-bolts. However, if you don't have T-bolts you can just use normal bolts that will fit in that T-track, some wing nuts. These are M6 and I'm actually going to be using a 7mm drill bit to have that bit of a wiggle room for those bolts. Let's put the fence piece together. As you can see, I've added the top piece to my existing table saw fence. I'm using some clamps and a square to make sure I'm in the right spot for it. After that, a bit of glue, and I will be adding the fence part to this top piece. To make sure everything is absolutely nice and stable, I will be adding some screws to this to hold everything together. My screws are 4mm in thickness, that's including the thread. So in the first top piece, I'm actually pre-drilling a 4mm hole that will prevent the splitting of MDF. And I'm only tapping a small hole in the main fence piece to make sure the screws go in nicely in. Alright, so that's our fence and that's going to be our Infeed table. And that needs to go on top of this runner, okay, just like that. Now the distance is almost 18mm from top to bottom. However, it's basically probably about 2 or 3mm over the level of the tabletop. So we need to take off some of that material right from this area here. To do that, I'm going to use my router. Now I want to have this piece, the Infeed table, underneath our fence, and on top of removing a bit of material for the runner here, we need to take a bit of material out for this plastic bit for the locking jaw here. So I've more or less traced this on this MDF piece and I'm going to remove that with the router as well. And we need to do the same thing on the back end as well. Remove a bit of material for the runner plus a bit of material for that plastic locking lever for the fence. Right, so I've locked my fence in place. washer, wing nut and the T-bolt on both ends. And now I'm going to install the Infeed. That's how it looks like from underneath. Okay, a bit more has to be taken off for the plastic part of the fence and the channel here for the aluminium extrusion. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a bit of wood glue to glue it in place, and then we'll come back with some screws. And just wipe off the glue excess. And the same thing with the Outfeed table. That's how it looks like at the back. So we need to make that channel for the aluminium rail over here, and a bit more cutout, a deeper cutout for the plastic lock of the fence. And again, same thing. I'm going to add a bit of wood glue, clamp it down and leave it to dry. And as I said, now I'm just going to reinforce these connections with some screws. Now, one thing that I forgot to do is to add a chamfer at the bottom of the fence. It's actually super important to have that chamfer right at the bottom where the fence and the table of your saw meet, as if there is any debris, any sawdust, anything like that, it will not cause any issues as you are pushing the timber through against the fence. So yeah, think about this a little bit earlier and make a chamfer before you actually put the thing together. Now I'm just going to be using my router to create the chamfer, and I'm going to be using a rasp as well to create the chamfer right over here and this edge where I already placed those two boards. Okay, with all that sorted, now we can install back our extension, our infeed and outfeed tables. Okay, so the infeed support, we've got 15 centimeters. If you do want, you can actually route out the channel if you want to use some sort of a jig or anything like that. And look at that, it's super stable, it's not bending or anything, as we do have support from the rail here. However, if you wanted to go something a little bit longer, then you may need to think of how to secure it so this piece will not flex. But saying that, we've got 23 centimeters here of the outfeed table, and that is not flexing either. Okay, we've got nice and stable outfeed table here as well. As you can see, it's a very simple solution to add a bit of support if you don't have it and if you do need it. We are utilizing the T-track on the saw itself, and we are giving a bit support from the front and from the back. However, I've actually made this to allow me to create another jig that I do need for some upcoming projects. But to find out what I'm going to be making, what type of a jig it will be, well, you need to wait a few days for my next video. So if you're not a subscriber, make sure to subscribe to my channel to see how I'm going to be utilizing this in my future video. But hey, let's give it a nice test run and see how this performs. And with this jig on, you can freely move the fence with no issues whatsoever. And there you have it, beautiful smooth operation, no flex at the front, no flex at the back. That's exactly what I needed. And as I said, you can move the fence as you wish. So as you can see, very simple, but it works great. Now at this point, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to my Patreons for ongoing support. And remember to subscribe to my channel so you'll see the second jig that will accompany this one. But hey, that's it for today. But before you go, check out these two cool playlists, plenty of videos already there. So click on those and maybe you'll find your next video to watch. For today, that's all. Take care.